In a thrilling wedding ceremony, the young daughter unexpectedly interrupts her father's marriage. She reveals a shocking secret about the fiancé that her father was completely unaware of. What really happened? Why did she decide to intervene on this significant day? Stay tuned to uncover the secrets revealed and see how her father reacts when he immediately calls 911. It's an unbelievable story that you won't want to miss. Lily's pencil tapped softly against the pages of her notebook, the rhythmic sound filling the quiet of her small bedroom. She turned to a fresh page and began writing down her observations, the words pouring out in neat, careful letters. This wasn't just any notebook. It was her own private world, a place where she could safely gather her thoughts and express the mounting fears she had about Grace, the woman who was about to become her stepmother. To everyone else, Grace was charming and beautiful. She had a warm smile and a polite laugh, always eager to please and quick to offer a kind word. John, her father, seemed happier than Lily had ever seen him. Since her mother's passing, it had been just the two of them, navigating life together as best they could. But now, as John prepared to marry Grace, Lily felt an invisible barrier grow between her and her father. At only 8 years old, Lily's sense of right and wrong was sharper than most people realized. She was a perceptive, quiet girl who had always noticed the small things others overlooked. And with Grace, something was off. Lily couldn't quite pinpoint it, but the feeling gnawed at her, lurking beneath the surface every time Grace looked at her, with eyes that were just a little too cold when John wasn't around. In her notebook, Lily carefully jotted down each strange moment she could remember. Grace gave me a look when Dad left the room, like she didn't want me around. She didn't listen when I told her about my favorite story. She just nodded and went back to her phone. Grace is nice to Dad, but sometimes she says things to me in a way that makes me feel small. With each entry, Lily felt a flicker of control return to her. Writing about these experiences helped her feel less alone, like she was building a record for the day when she might need it. She thought back to the times she had seen her father look at Grace with such admiration, his eyes lighting up in a way that made Lily's heart ache. She wanted her father to be happy, of course, but something told her that Grace wasn't who she seemed to be. Clutching the notebook close to her chest, Lily made a silent vow. No matter what it took, she would protect her father. She didn't know exactly how or when, but one day, she would reveal the truth about Grace. Until then, she would wait and watch, gathering everything she needed to make her father see what she was starting to understand, that Grace might not be part of their family for the right reasons. Lily sat quietly at the dinner table, observing Grace through careful, hidden glances. Her father, John, sat across from her, laughing at something Grace had just said. His face was animated, more alive than Lily had seen it in a long time. Grace was making him happy. Lily could see that clearly, but there was a tightness in her stomach that wouldn't go away. John, always busy with his work as a doctor, had been so thrilled when Grace entered their lives. She seemed like the perfect match, charming, sophisticated, and always saying just the right thing. For John, it felt like a new beginning, a fresh start for both him and Lily. But for Lily, it felt like she was watching her safe, quiet world slowly transform into something unfamiliar. When Grace caught her eye, she gave Lily a tight-lipped smile. It looked polite, but there was something in Grace's eyes that felt calculating, as if she were studying Lily just as intently. Lily looked away, her fingers instinctively curling around the edges of her chair. She wanted to say something, to ask Grace what she was hiding, but the words caught in her throat. She knew that her father wouldn't believe her concerns, not yet. Later that night, Lily's best friend Ellie came over for a play date. They sat cross-legged on Lily's bed, surrounded by an assortment of stuffed animals, dolls, and half-built Lego structures. The warm glow of the bedside lamp cast a comforting light over the room, and for a moment, it felt like any other carefree night. But Ellie had been noticing something different about Lily lately. She was quieter, more thoughtful, and the question had been simmering in her mind for a while now. "So," Ellie began carefully, rearranging a stuffed rabbit in her lap, "what's it like having Grace around? Do you like her?" Lily glanced down, hugging her favorite stuffed bear a little tighter. She knew Ellie was asking out of genuine concern, but even so, it was hard to put her feelings into words. "She's nice to Dad," Lily said finally, her voice soft. He's so happy. I've never seen him like this since Mom. She paused, her brow furrowing as she searched for the right words. But when we're alone, it's different. It's like she doesn't even like me sometimes. She's cold. Ellie's eyes widened with a mix of surprise and concern. That sounds strange, Lily. Really strange. Have you told your dad about it? Lily shook her head, a flicker of hesitation crossing her face. No. He's been so happy, Ellie. I don't want to ruin that. It's like he finally has something good again, and I don't want to take that away from him. She looked down, fidgeting with her bear's ear, her voice dropping to a near whisper. I keep thinking, maybe I'm imagining things. Maybe I just don't want anyone to take Mom's place. Ellie reached over and squeezed Lily's hand. I get that, she said softly. But still, if something feels wrong, maybe it's worth paying attention to, right? Lily nodded, glancing up at Ellie, grateful for her friend's understanding. I've been watching her, writing things down. It makes me feel like I'm doing something, even if I can't say anything yet. Writing things down? Ellie repeated, curious. Like what? Like the way she looks at me when Dad's not around, or how she doesn't really listen when I talk to her, and sometimes... Lily hesitated, unsure if she should share the next part, but Ellie's steady gaze encouraged her. Sometimes I hear her talking to someone on the phone, and it sounds like she's hiding something, like she's up to something. Ellie's expression grew serious, and she squeezed Lily's hand tighter. That doesn't sound like your imagination, Lily. That sounds... real. Lily sighed, feeling a mixture of relief and apprehension. I know. That's why I'm scared, but I don't know what to do. If I say something and Dad doesn't believe me, Grace will know I tried to tell him, and I'm afraid of what she'll do. Ellie was quiet for a moment, deep in thought. Then she looked at Lily with determination. You're brave, Lily. Braver than most people I know. Maybe for now, just keep watching and writing things down like you have been. If something happens, you'll have all the proof you need. A hint of a smile crossed Lily's face, and she hugged her bear a little closer, feeling just a bit stronger. Thanks, Ellie. I don't know what I'd do without you. Ellie grinned, giving Lily a playful nudge. Hey, that's what best friends are for. Just remember, you're not alone in this, okay? Lily nodded, and as they continued their playdate, she felt a newfound sense of determination settle within her. She would keep watching, stay brave, and do whatever it took to protect her father. The next day, while her father was at work, Lily found herself alone with Grace once more. The house felt still and tense, the silence stretching uncomfortably between them as they sat in the living room. Grace was absorbed in her phone, her fingers scrolling rapidly as she muttered to herself, barely glancing in Lily's direction. Lily took a deep breath, gathering the courage to speak. Grace? She started, her voice small but hopeful. I'm working on a project for school. It's a diorama of the solar system. I thought I might use some paint and... Before Lily could finish, Grace shot her a sharp look, her expression filled with annoyance. Are you serious, Lily? Grace's tone was harsher than Lily expected, her words slicing through the quiet room. This room is spotless. I just cleaned it, and you want to drag out a bunch of paint and make a mess? Lily's heart sank, her excitement fading in an instant. She tried to explain, her voice wavering slightly. I was going to be really careful. I can use a mat, and I'll clean everything up. Grace interrupted her with a dismissive wave, her eyes narrowing. I don't have time to deal with your messes, Lily. It's bad enough that you leave your things all over the house. Just take your project somewhere else. Or better yet, do it at school. She returned her attention to her phone, her fingers tapping angrily against the screen, as if Lily's request had been a major inconvenience. Lily swallowed hard, feeling a familiar sting of sadness and frustration. She wanted to disappear, to escape from the sharp, cutting words that made her feel so small and unwanted. It wasn't just what Grace had said. It was the way she looked at Lily, like she was an annoyance, an unwelcome guest in her own home. Lily tried to blink back the tears threatening to form. Okay, she whispered, her voice barely audible. She clutched her notebook tightly, the only thing that gave her a sense of control in moments like these. Grace didn't respond, didn't even glance her way. She was already back on her phone, scrolling with a look of irritation, as if the conversation had never happened. As the days passed, the subtle criticisms grew sharper, and the atmosphere became increasingly uncomfortable when it was just the two of them. Grace would comment on Lily's messy habits or her lack of manners, words that lingered in the air long after they were said. Yet, when John was around, Grace's demeanor transformed completely. She was warm, cheerful, and even affectionate towards Lily, patting her shoulder or asking about her day, as if they were the best of friends. Lily noticed this shift, and each time it happened, she felt more isolated. Her only comfort was the notebook tucked beneath her pillow, where she recorded these moments in detail, her silent witness to Grace's changing behavior. One evening, as Lily lay in bed, she clutched the notebook close to her chest, her mind racing with thoughts she couldn't voice out loud. She wished her father could see through Grace's charm, but he was too enamored to notice anything amiss. The only person she could trust was Ellie, who continued to encourage her to stay strong and vigilant. And so, Lily did. She resolved to keep watching, waiting for the day when she could show her father the truth. And the turning point came a few days later when Lily's father went to work, as usual. Lily sat at the kitchen table finishing her cereal. The house was unusually quiet, and she could hear every small sound, the ticking of the clock, the soft hum of the refrigerator, and then voices. She could make out Grace's low, hurried tone coming from the next room, her voice a hushed murmur, as if she didn't want anyone to hear. Curious, Lily carefully set down her spoon and tiptoed toward the living room, pressing herself against the wall just out of sight. She strained her ears to listen, her heart racing as she caught snippets of Grace's conversation. "Yes, Mark, I told you, it's all going according to plan," Grace whispered, her voice edged with irritation. "I just need a little more time. Don't worry, he suspects nothing." Lily's breath hitched as she clutched the edge of the wall. She could feel her pulse thundering in her ears. Mark? Who was Mark? And what plan was she talking about? Her mind whirled with questions as she tried to make sense of what she was hearing. Grace's voice dropped even lower, but Lily could just make out the last part of the conversation. "Once everything is finalized, we'll have all we need. I'll call you again soon, but you need to be patient." As Grace ended the call, Lily quickly scrambled back to the kitchen, pretending to be occupied with her breakfast. She felt her hands tremble slightly as she picked up her spoon again, her mind buzzing with confusion and fear. Grace entered the kitchen, her face composed and smiling. "Good morning, Lily," she said cheerfully, as if she hadn't just been whispering about secret plans. "Did you sleep well?" Lily forced herself to smile back, nodding silently. She wanted to ask her 1,000 questions, to demand answers, but she knew that wouldn't work. Grace would brush it off, or dismiss her as being too young to understand. So Lily did what she had been doing all along. She kept her fears to herself. The rest of the day, Lily felt a growing sense of dread that she couldn't shake. She clutched her notebook tightly, writing down every detail of what she had overheard. The words burned into her memory. Grace was hiding something big, and Lily was more determined than ever to find out what it was. That night, as she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, Lily whispered to herself, "I have to protect Dad." She didn't know what Grace and this mysterious Mark were planning, but she had a feeling it was bad. Very bad. The next day, Lily became more observant, following Grace's movements with quiet, watchful eyes. She began paying attention to every phone call, every glance, every seemingly innocent comment. As the days passed, she caught more glimpses of Grace's suspicious behavior. Hurried phone calls, cryptic conversations, and tense silences when she thought no one was watching. Lily's heart was heavy with the burden of what she knew, but she promised herself that she wouldn't let Grace succeed, whatever she was planning. She had to be strong, even if no one else saw what she saw. As Lily drifted off to sleep that night, her resolve solidified within her. Though she didn't have all the answers, she possessed a fierce courage and was determined to protect her father at any cost. Lying in bed, she felt a renewed sense of determination settle lightly yet firmly on her chest. She recalled her mother's whispered words from that quiet evening, spoken softly as her illness grew more severe. "You're a smart and brave girl, Lily," her mother had said, her voice barely a breath. "You will be a support for your father, his light. Promise me that, sweetheart." In that moment, Lily had promised, her heart swelling with fierce love and loyalty. Now, in the stillness of the night, the house felt shrouded in quiet darkness. But Lily sensed her mother's presence, guiding her through the shadows of doubt and fear. Clutching her notebook tightly, she understood that it was more than just a collection of notes on Grace's actions. It was her shield, a testament to her courage and determination, etched clearly within its pages. With her resolve solidified, Lily became a quiet observer, diligently watching Grace's every move in the days that followed. She felt like a detective, careful to remain inconspicuous as she followed Grace around the house, noting the strange moments and subtle changes in her behavior. Each time Grace's demeanor shifted from sweet and charming to cold and dismissive, Lily recorded it all in her notebook, determined to piece together the puzzle. Lily was particularly patient, waiting for the day Grace would make another phone call. She remembered the last time, the way Grace had spoken in hushed tones, and the unsettling feelings it had stirred within her. Lily felt a sense of urgency. If she could just overhear one more conversation, it might be the key to revealing Grace's true intentions. Her days were filled with quiet vigilance, where every creak of the floorboards and rustle of fabric heightened her senses. She would spend hours in her room, listening intently for any signs of Grace's phone calls, her heart pounding each time she heard Grace move about the house. It became a game of patience, where every whispered word could lead to the truth. And the turning point came a few days later when Lily's father went to work, as usual. Lily was sitting at the kitchen table doing her homework when she heard Grace talking on the phone again. This time, the conversation seemed more intense. Lily's heart raced as she crept closer, trying to catch snippets of what Grace was saying. "Mark, I told you, everything is in place." Grace's voice was low but urgent. "Just stick to the plan. We can't afford any mistakes now. He's too trusting. Once we're married, we can take care of everything." Lily's stomach dropped at the mention of Mark, the name that had been haunting her thoughts. Who was he? And what was this plan? With every word, her anxiety spiked, and she felt the weight of the secret she was carrying grow heavier. She needed to find out more. After Grace ended the call, Lily gathered her courage and decided to follow Grace discreetly around the house. As Grace moved from room to room, Lily stayed just out of sight, her heart pounding as she took careful notes in her mind. She watched Grace leave the house, and without hesitation, she slipped on her shoes and followed her outside, making sure to keep a safe distance. Grace walked briskly down the street, her heels clicking against the pavement. Lily trailed behind, trying to stay unnoticed. Grace made her way to a nearby park, and Lily felt a thrill of fear mixed with determination. She hid behind a tree, her breath coming in quick bursts as she peered out to see Grace talking to a tall man with dark hair, a man Lily recognized from her sketches of Grace's secret phone conversations. As they talked, Grace leaned in close to the man, her expression animated and conspiratorial. Lily strained to hear their conversation, but the whispers were just out of reach. She quickly jotted down notes in her notebook, capturing the details of the man and the way Grace seemed to lean into his words, a sense of familiarity that made Lily's skin crawl. Suddenly, Grace pulled out a small envelope from her bag and handed it to the man. He accepted it with a nod, and as they exchanged what looked like a handshake, Lily's heart raced with a mix of dread and adrenaline. What was in that envelope? Was it related to the life insurance policy she had discovered in Grace's room? Lily couldn't contain her curiosity any longer. As Grace and the man started to part ways, she decided to take action. She slipped further behind the tree, waiting for the right moment to follow Grace back home. Her mind raced with possibilities, and the thought of what she might uncover drove her forward. When Grace returned home, Lily quietly followed her inside, keeping her distance. Grace seemed flustered, her earlier composure slipping as she rushed around the house. Lily watched her closely, hoping to catch a glimpse of what was inside the envelope, or any sign of what Grace was planning. The moment Grace stepped into her room, Lily took a deep breath and seized the opportunity. She quietly tiptoed to the door, peeking inside. Grace had left her phone on the bed, and the door was slightly ajar. Heart pounding, Lily slowly pushed the door open, her pulse racing at the thought of what she might find. Inside, Lily's eyes quickly scanned the room. The envelope was sitting on Grace's desk, slightly open, and Lily could see papers peeking out. She glanced back to make sure Grace wasn't coming and quickly stepped inside, her hands trembling with anticipation. As she approached the desk, Her heart raced with each step. She reached for the envelope and, with a flicker of fear and excitement, pulled it open just enough to see what was inside. Her breath caught in her throat as she spotted the words, "Life Insurance Policy," printed at the top of one of the papers. Lily's hands shook as she realized the truth. Grace was indeed hiding something significant. Not only was she involved in something dangerous, but she was also plotting against her father. Determined, Lily made a mental note to gather as much information as she could. This was the evidence she needed to confront her father. With a surge of determination, she quickly closed the envelope and slipped out of Grace's room, her heart pounding in her chest. She had to be careful. She needed a solid plan to confront Grace and protect her father. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to fit together, and Lily knew she was on the brink of discovering something crucial. As she returned to her room, notebook in hand, she scribbled down everything she had seen and heard, her heart racing with a mix of fear and hope. She would keep watching, keep gathering evidence, and when the time was right, she would reveal the truth to her father. The days following Lily's unsettling discovery were filled with an overwhelming mix of anxiety and determination. Each time her father, John, returned home from work, Lily felt a flutter of hope that maybe, just maybe, she could find the right moment to tell him everything. But with every passing hour, that hope began to wane under the weight of her fear. Lily watched as John remained blissfully unaware of the turmoil brewing beneath the surface. He was excited about the upcoming wedding, often speaking fondly of Grace and their plans for the future. Lily couldn't understand how he could be so oblivious, especially after everything she had heard. One evening, as they sat down for dinner, Lily felt a growing urgency. John was animatedly talking about the wedding details, completely immersed in his own happiness. "And then we can finally go on that honeymoon we've talked about. I just know Grace is going to make an amazing stepmother to you," he said, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. Lily's heart ached at his words. She looked down at her plate, pushing her food around, the heaviness in her stomach making it hard to swallow. "Dad," she said hesitantly, her voice barely above a whisper, "can we talk about Grace?" John looked up, his smile fading slightly, as he noticed the seriousness in her tone. "Of course, sweetheart. What's on your mind?" Taking a deep breath, Lily gathered her courage. I've been worried about her. I think she might not be who you think she is." The moment the words left her mouth, she felt a surge of fear. Would her father believe her? John's brow furrowed in concern, but before he could respond, Grace entered the room, her presence instantly changing the atmosphere. "Is everything all right in here?" Grace asked, her voice sweet but with an edge that made Lily's heart race. "Just having a little chat," John replied, his tone casual, trying to reassure both of them. "Lily is just worried about the wedding. You know how kids can be." Grace's expression shifted slightly, a flicker of irritation crossing her face. "I'm sure she'll come around, right, Lily?" Lily nodded stiffly, her resolve crumbling under Grace's piercing gaze. "Yeah, I guess." That evening, after dinner, Lily retreated to her room, her mind racing. She felt defeated, the opportunity to warn her father slipping away. But she couldn't give up. She needed to be brave, just like Ellie had said. She decided to try again, knowing that time was running out. The next day, while her father was busy with wedding preparations, Lily mustered all her courage to approach him again. He was sitting in his study, going over some papers, and the sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the room. "Dad, can I talk to you?" she asked, her heart pounding. "Of course, Lily. What's up?" John looked up, giving her his full attention. Lily hesitated, her mind racing with the words she wanted to say. "It's about Grace. I really think you should be careful. She's been acting strange, and I overheard her talking to someone named Mark. They seemed to be planning something." John's expression shifted to one of confusion. "What do you mean, planning something?" "Lily, I think you might be overreacting. Grace has been nothing but kind to us." "But Dad, I've seen how she treats me when you're not around. She's not nice to me at all. I'm not making this up." Lily's voice was rising, desperation creeping in. Just then, Grace walked past the study, pausing to listen at the door. "What's all this shouting about?" she asked, feigning innocence, but Lily noticed the flicker of annoyance in her eyes. John sighed, rubbing his temples. "Lily is just a bit nervous about the wedding. She'll be fine, right, sweetheart? Grace stepped into the room, crossing her arms. I'm sure whatever it is can wait until later, don't you think, Lily? Your dad has a lot on his plate right now. Lily felt a surge of frustration and fear, but she didn't want to back down. I just want you to be safe, Dad, she pleaded, looking straight into his eyes. Please just listen to me. But John's expression softened, and he said, I know you're trying to help, Lily, but sometimes things aren't as bad as they seem. You need to give Grace a chance. Grace's smile was tight, a shadow crossing her features. See, Lily? Your dad knows what's best for you. Just relax and enjoy the preparations. Lily felt a chill run down her spine as Grace's eyes locked onto hers, a warning hidden behind her sweet facade. She knew she had to be careful. Grace would stop at nothing to maintain her control. That night, as Lily lay in bed, the weight of her fears settled heavily on her chest. She felt isolated and terrified, trapped between the need to protect her father and the fear of Grace's threats. But she wouldn't give up. No matter what it took, she had to find a way to warn her father about the danger Grace posed. The day of the wedding arrived, and the atmosphere was charged with excitement and anticipation. The sun shone brightly, illuminating the beautiful chapel where John and Grace were set to tie the knot. For most, it was a day filled with joy and celebration. But for Lily, it felt like a ticking time bomb. Her heart raced as she tried to suppress the storm of anxiety brewing inside her. As the guests filled the chapel, Lily stood with her father, dressed in a lovely little dress that Grace had picked out for her, feeling more like a pawn in someone else's game than a cherished daughter. John was beaming with happiness, completely oblivious to the turmoil simmering beneath the surface. Lily's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, her resolve hardening with each passing moment. Are you ready, sweetie? John asked, kneeling down to her level with a smile that lit up his face. Lily forced a smile, but it felt heavy on her lips. I'm excited, Dad, she lied, her voice barely above a whisper. Inside, she felt like she was about to burst. She had to do something today. She couldn't let the wedding happen without revealing the truth. As Grace finally entered the chapel in a stunning white gown, Lily felt a chill run down her spine. The congregation gasped in awe, and John's face lit up with adoration, completely entranced by Grace's presence. As Grace reached the altar and took John's hands, the officiant began the ceremony, speaking about love, trust, and the bonds of family. But all Lily could hear were Grace's past words echoing in her mind. He's too trusting. Once we're married, we can take care of everything. It felt like an unbearable weight pressing down on her chest. Every moment felt like an eternity as the officiant spoke. Lily shifted her weight from foot to foot, her heart pounding louder than the music. Suddenly, a surge of courage washed over her, and she knew she couldn't remain silent any longer. This was her moment. Wait! Lily shouted, her voice breaking through the ceremony like a thunderclap. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd as all eyes turned toward her. John looked down at her. Confusion and concern etched on his face, while Grace's expression twisted into one of shock and barely concealed anger. What's wrong, buddy? John knelt beside her, concern flooding his features. Dad, you can't marry her. Lily's voice trembled, but there was a fierce determination behind her words. She's not who you think she is. I heard her talking to someone named Mark. They're planning something bad. The guests murmured, shocked by Lily's outburst. Grace stepped forward, her voice smooth but laced with venom. Sweetheart, I know this is a big change for you. You're just scared of having a new mom, but that doesn't mean you can make wild accusations. No, you don't understand, Lily cried, desperation creeping into her voice. I overheard everything. They're going to hurt you, Dad. They want to take your money and... The officiant tried to regain control of the situation. Let's all take a breath. Lily, I think you should calm down. This is a special day. But Lily couldn't calm down. She felt the truth bubbling inside her, demanding to be set free. I found the life insurance policy in Grace's room. She's planning to get rid of you after the wedding. Gasps erupted from the crowd as the weight of her words sank in. John's expression shifted from confusion to disbelief. Lily, are you sure about this? He asked, his voice steady but laced with worry. I am sure. You have to believe me, Lily pleaded, tears welling in her eyes. In that moment, a surge of desperation pushed her to take immediate action. She could not let this chance slip away. She had to prove her point. Without another thought, Lily sprinted across the chapel toward the sound system set up for the ceremony. Guests watched in bewilderment as she reached the speaker, her heart pounding with fear and determination. She quickly fumbled with the cords until she found the USB connected to the system, the very one Grace had used to play music earlier. "Wait! I have proof!" she shouted, her voice trembling but resolute. The crowd's murmurs faded as everyone turned their attention to her, curious and apprehensive. Lily plugged the USB into the port and pressed play, her hands shaking with anticipation. The soft whir of the device filled the chapel, and suddenly Grace's voice echoed through the room, crystal clear and unmistakable. "Once we're married, your father won't know what hit him. It'll be so easy to get what we want," Grace's voice said, laced with a chilling nonchalance. "Just a little accident, and we'll be set for life. He trusts me completely. He has no idea what's coming." Gasps rippled through the congregation. Shock painted on every face as they processed the implication of Grace's words. Lily's eyes locked onto her father's, searching for the flicker of realization. John stood frozen, his mouth slightly agape as the reality of the situation sunk in. "See, Dad? You have to believe me now," Lily cried, her voice cracking as the recording continued. Lily watched as Grace's face twisted in horror, the color draining from her cheeks. This was the moment Lily had been waiting for, the moment where the truth would be revealed, and Grace could no longer hide behind her charm. "Lily, stop this!" Grace shouted, her voice filled with panic as she took a step forward. But the damage was done. "This is absurd," she spat, trying to regain control of the situation. "You're just a child trying to get attention." But John stood torn between the two, his heart racing. "Grace, is there any truth to this?" he demanded, his voice firm, stepping back from her. Lily felt a surge of hope as she saw doubt creeping into her father's eyes. "Please, Dad, listen to me. You have to believe me." Grace, realizing her grip was slipping, reached out to John, attempting to pull him back to her side. "John, this is ridiculous. You know I love you, and I want to be a family." The tension in the room was palpable. Guests whispered among themselves, their expressions a mix of shock and concern. The officiant looked back and forth between Lily and Grace, unsure of how to proceed. "John," Lily said urgently, "please just look at her. She's not the person you think she is. She's been lying to you." As if to confirm Lily's fears, Grace's eyes flashed with anger, and she suddenly turned toward Lily. "You little brat, you're ruining everything," she hissed, her voice low and threatening. "Grace, that's enough," John said, his voice firm as he stepped back, the reality of the situation crashing down around them like a tidal wave. John's face was a mixture of disbelief and rage, and he pointed toward the doors, his hand shaking slightly. "Get out of my sight, Grace. I can't believe I let you manipulate me like this." As the doors slammed shut, a wave of relief washed over Lily. She felt lighter, as if a heavy weight had been lifted off her chest. John knelt down beside her, concern replacing the anger in his eyes. "Lily, I'm so sorry for what you had to go through. I should have listened to you sooner." "Dad, I was just scared," Lily admitted, her voice trembling. "I didn't want to ruin your happiness, but I couldn't let her hurt you." John pulled her into a tight embrace, feeling her small frame shaking against him. He could sense her fear, but he also felt immense pride. "You did the right thing, sweetheart. You showed bravery that most adults wouldn't have. I promise we'll get through this together." The wedding may have been disrupted, but what mattered most was that they were safe. That thought brought a sense of comfort to Lily. Just then, the officiant cleared his throat, trying to restore some semblance of order amidst the chaos. "I'm calling the police," he announced firmly, his voice steady. Lily watched as Grace's expression transformed into one of fury, her carefully constructed facade crumbling before everyone's eyes. In that moment, Lily felt a surge of confidence. She had made the right choice, despite the fear coursing through her veins. She had saved her father from a fate worse than she could have ever imagined. As the police were called, a mix of relief and apprehension washed over Lily. She had exposed the truth. But now what would happen next? Would Grace retaliate? Would her father finally believe her? The uncertainty loomed over her like a dark cloud. But one thing was clear. She would do whatever it took to protect her family. As the police arrived at the chapel, The atmosphere shifted from one of disbelief to urgency. Officers rushed inside, immediately assessing the scene, while John stood protectively beside Lily, his expression a mix of concern and anger toward Grace. The tension in the air was palpable as the police began to take statements from the stunned guests, piecing together the chaotic events of the day. Lily watched with wide eyes as one of the officers approached them. "Mr. Matthews, we need to speak with you and your daughter about what just happened. Can you tell us more about the situation with Grace?" John nodded, still holding Lily's hand tightly. "My daughter has evidence that Grace—" He hesitated, glancing at Grace, who was being restrained by another officer. "That Grace was planning to harm me." Lily took a deep breath, her resolve steady. "I recorded her on the sound system," she said, her voice firm despite the tremor of fear that still lingered. "She was talking about how she and a man named Mark planned to get rid of my dad." The officer raised an eyebrow, glancing toward the sound system. "We'll need to listen to that recording. But first, can you tell us anything else you might have noticed about Grace's behavior?" As John and Lily recounted their experiences with Grace, the officer scribbled down notes, his expression serious. "It's crucial that we gather as much information as possible. Grace's behavior seems suspicious, and we need to ensure that she isn't a threat." Just then, another officer approached, having taken Grace aside for questioning. "We've located a man named Mark in the vicinity," he reported, looking at John and Lily. "We believe he may be connected to Grace's plans. We're going to bring him in for questioning." Lily's heart raced at the news. She had felt a mix of fear and anger about Mark since overhearing Grace's conversation with him. "He's dangerous," she exclaimed, her voice rising. "He was with Grace when she was talking about the insurance policy." The officer nodded gravely. "Thank you for that information. We will ensure that both Grace and Mark are thoroughly investigated. We want to make sure you and your father are safe." As the officers continued their investigation, Grace's calm demeanor began to slip away, revealing the panic beneath. Lily could see the fear in her eyes as she realized the extent of her plans had been uncovered. "Lily, you don't understand," Grace shouted suddenly, her voice filled with desperation. "You're making a huge mistake. This isn't what you think." But Lily stood firm, her small stature radiating determination. "You're the one who made the mistake, Grace. You thought you could trick us, but we know the truth now." As Grace continued to protest, Lily felt a sense of empowerment wash over her. She had taken a stand, and it felt good to no longer be a victim of Grace's manipulation. After gathering statements and information, the police began to piece together the larger picture of Grace and Mark's scheme. They discovered a web of deceit that extended far beyond Lily's family. Grace was not just a simple stepmother-to-be. She was part of a more sinister operation involving several high-stakes cons targeting wealthy individuals. The officers worked quickly to secure evidence against Grace, ensuring that she would not have the chance to escape or carry out her plans. Lily could see the officers coordinating their efforts, and her heart swelled with a mixture of relief and pride. They were taking her concerns seriously, and they were determined to protect her father. As the evening wore on, Lily and John were taken to a separate area for their safety. The tension began to lift as the reality of their situation settled in. "Lily," John said softly, kneeling beside her, "I'm so proud of you. You showed so much courage today, and you saved my life." Lily's cheeks flushed with a mix of embarrassment and joy. "I just didn't want anything to happen to you, Dad. I couldn't let her hurt you." John pulled her into a tight embrace, and for the first time in days, Lily felt the weight of worry lift from her shoulders. They were safe now, together, and nothing would come between them again. As they waited for the investigation to conclude, Lily felt a sense of determination strengthen within her. She had fought hard for her family, and she would continue to do so, no matter what challenges lay ahead. After the chaos of the wedding, Lily and John tried to find a sense of normalcy, but the shadow of Grace loomed heavily over them. With every report from the police, the fear that Grace would come back for revenge grew. They had been warned to stay vigilant, and John installed a new security system in their home, complete with cameras and motion sensors. But the feeling of unease never fully left them. Lily often found herself glancing at the front door, her heart racing at every creak of the floorboards. She couldn't shake the feeling that Grace was still out there, plotting her next move. One evening, as Lily was doing her homework, Her phone buzzed, and she picked it up, only to find a message from an unknown number. "Lily, it's Grace. You think you've won, but this isn't over. You'll regret ruining my plans." Lily's stomach twisted into knots as she read the message. Her hands trembled, and she quickly showed it to John, who was in the kitchen preparing dinner. "Dad, it's Grace. She just texted me," Lily exclaimed, her voice trembling. John's face hardened as he took the phone from her. "I'll call the police. We need to take this seriously." Just as John dialed, the phone rang again. This time, it was an incoming call from the same unknown number. Against his better judgment, John answered, his heart pounding. "John Matthews," he said, keeping his voice steady. "John, it's me, Grace," came the voice on the other end, dripping with false sweetness. "I just wanted to check in on my future family. How is Lily doing? I hope she's been behaving." Lily's heart raced as she listened to Grace's voice, cold and menacing. "You're not welcome here, Grace," she shouted into the phone, her fear turning to anger. "Stay away from us." "Oh, but you see, Lily, I can't just walk away. You've made this personal," Grace replied, her tone shifting to something darker. "And I always finish what I start." The call ended abruptly, leaving Lily and John in stunned silence. John's grip on the phone tightened, and his face was a mask of anger and fear. "We need to get you to safety, Lily," he said, his voice low and determined. Lily nodded, her mind racing with thoughts of how to protect her father and herself from Grace's wrath. "Dad, what if we set a trap? What if we make her think we're at the cabin, and then we catch her when she comes for us?" John looked at her, surprised by her suggestion, but impressed by her bravery. "That's risky, Lily. She's unpredictable." "I know, but if we just wait here, she could come for us any time," Lily insisted. "We need to outsmart her." After a moment of consideration, John agreed, realizing that they had to take a proactive approach. "All right, we'll pretend to go to the cabin, but we'll have the police on standby, and we need to stay in touch with them the entire time." As they prepared for their plan, both father and daughter felt the weight of what was to come. They packed their bags as though they were leaving, but John kept his phone close, ready to call for help at a moment's notice. The next morning, they set off for the cabin, a secluded retreat in the woods where they had spent many happy moments together. Lily felt a mix of excitement and fear as they drove, knowing that this was their chance to confront Grace once and for all. Once they arrived, they settled in and began to act as though they were enjoying a peaceful weekend getaway. They made dinner, played games, and watched the sunset. But underneath the surface, tension crackled in the air. Just after dusk, as they sat on the porch watching the stars emerge, Lily heard a twig snap in the distance. Her heart skipped a beat. "Dad, I think someone's here," she whispered, her eyes wide with fear. John stood up, scanning the darkening woods. "Stay here, Lily. I'll check it out." But before he could move, a familiar voice pierced through the night. "John! Lily! I knew I'd find you here!" Lily's breath caught in her throat as Grace stepped into the light, her face twisted with rage. "You thought you could get away from me? You think you're clever, don't you?" "Get back, Grace," John warned, stepping protectively in front of Lily. "You're not welcome here." Grace laughed, a chilling sound that echoed in the night. "You're both so naive. You have no idea what you're playing with." Lily felt a surge of determination. "You're not going to hurt us, Grace. We know the truth now, and we're not afraid of you anymore." Grace's eyes narrowed, her rage palpable. "You think this is over? You think you've won? I'll make you both pay for this." As she lunged forward, John quickly stepped between Grace and Lily, his heart racing. "Lily, go inside and call the police," he shouted, urging her back toward the cabin. With her heart pounding in her chest, Lily sprinted inside, her mind racing as she grabbed her phone. She dialed 911, her hands shaking as she reported Grace's threat. Meanwhile, John faced Grace, trying to stall for time. "You need to leave. You're done here," he said, his voice firm. Grace's expression darkened, and she took a step closer, her demeanor shifting from confidence to fury. "You think the police can save you? They'll never believe you. I'll make sure of it." But just then, the sound of sirens echoed in the distance, growing closer. Lily's heart lifted at the sound, knowing help was on the way. Realizing her time was running out, Grace glanced nervously toward the road. "You haven't seen the last of me," she hissed, before turning to flee into the darkness. As the police arrived, Lily rushed out to meet them, relief flooding through her. "She's gone! She was just here!" The officers quickly began to search the area, but John and Lily knew that they had finally managed to outsmart Grace, if only for the moment. In that instant, Lily felt a weight lift off her shoulders. They were safe for now, and they had faced Grace together, stronger than before. Just as the officers began their search, Lily heard a commotion nearby. One of the officers shouted, "We've got her!" Lily and John turned to see Grace being escorted back into view, handcuffed and struggling against the grip of two officers. The sight of her helplessness filled Lily with a mix of triumph and relief. "Let me go! You can't do this!" Grace screamed, her voice dripping with venom. "You don't know what I'm capable of!" The officers ignored her, securing her into the back of the police car. One of the officers turned to John and Lily, assuring them, "She won't be able to hurt you anymore. We've got enough evidence against her now." As the police car drove away with Grace inside, Lily felt tears of relief fill her eyes. "We did it, Dad. She's finally gone for good." John pulled her into a tight embrace. "You were so brave, Lily. I'm so proud of you." Lily beamed, knowing that together they had conquered their fears. But she also knew that the road ahead would be about healing and moving forward, leaving the darkness of Grace behind them. The days following Grace's arrest were a whirlwind of emotions for both John and Lily. Though they had escaped the immediate threat, the psychological aftermath of their ordeal weighed heavily on their hearts and minds. The fear of the unknown still lingered, casting shadows over their everyday lives. In the weeks that followed, John noticed Lily becoming withdrawn. She often sat quietly, lost in thought, her bright spirit dimmed by the trauma they had endured. John himself found it difficult to shake off the feeling of vulnerability. He had always prided himself on being a protective father, but Grace's manipulation had shaken him to his core. Recognizing the emotional turmoil they both faced, John made the decision to seek professional help. They started attending therapy sessions together, where they learned to express their feelings in a safe environment. The therapist encouraged them to talk about their fears and anxieties, helping them to process the events that had transpired. During one session, Lily sat with her hands clasped tightly in her lap, her eyes downcast. "I just don't want to feel scared all the time," she admitted softly, her voice trembling. "I keep thinking about what Grace said, that she would come back for us." John reached over, placing his hand gently on her shoulder. "It's okay to feel scared, Lily. What we went through was really hard, but we have to remember that we are safe now. Grace can't hurt us anymore." The therapist nodded in agreement. "What you both experienced is significant. It's completely normal to feel fear after such a traumatic event. The important thing is that you're taking steps to heal together." As the sessions continued, John and Lily found comfort in sharing their thoughts and feelings with each other. They spoke about the importance of trust, both in each other and in the world around them. Lily realized that her dad was not just her protector, he was also her partner in overcoming challenges. This realization strengthened their bond, making it more resilient than ever. One afternoon, as they were walking back from a therapy session, John turned to Lily, a warm smile on his face. "I think we've come a long way, don't you? I feel like we're learning how to be stronger together." Lily nodded, feeling a flicker of hope. "Yeah, I think we are. I feel braver when I'm with you, Dad." As spring began to unfold, the world around them blossomed anew. The trees were budding, flowers bloomed, and the sun shone brightly, symbols of renewal and fresh beginnings. It was during this time that John decided it was important for them to take a break from the weight of their past and embark on a new adventure. "Lily," he said one evening while they were having dinner, "how about we go on a vacation, just you and me, somewhere we can relax and have fun?" Lily's eyes widened with excitement. "Really? Where are we going?" "I was thinking we could visit the beach," John suggested. "You love the ocean, right? We can build sandcastles, swim, and forget about everything for a while." The idea of a beach vacation filled Lily with joy, pushing away the shadows that had lingered for too long. "That sounds amazing, Dad. Can we have ice cream every day?" she asked, her smile returning. "Of course, ice cream every day," John laughed, his heart lightening at the sight of his daughter's enthusiasm. Over the next few days, they planned their trip together, choosing fun activities and discussing what they wanted to do once they arrived. The planning became a way for both of them to focus on the future instead of the past, allowing their minds to envision brighter days ahead. Finally, the day of their departure arrived. As they drove toward the coast, Lily watched the scenery change outside the car window, her excitement building with every passing mile. The ocean was calling to her, promising new memories and carefree days. When they arrived at the beach, the salty breeze filled their lungs, and the sound of crashing waves greeted them like an old friend. John and Lily wasted no time, rushing onto the sandy shore, the sun warming their faces. Lily giggled as she chased after the waves, her laughter echoing against the roar of the ocean. John joined her, and together they splashed in the water, letting the waves carry away the remnants of their fears. In those moments, they felt free, free from worry, free from the darkness that Grace had cast over their lives. As they built sandcastles and explored tide pools filled with colorful sea creatures, John felt a sense of peace wash over him. He realized that while the past would always be a part of their story, it did not define their future. Together, they could create new memories, filled with laughter and love. That night, as they sat on the beach watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink, John turned to Lily. "This is just the beginning, you know? We're going to rebuild our lives, and it's going to be beautiful." Lily nodded, her heart full. "Yeah, Dad, I feel really happy right now. I know we can do this together." As the stars began to twinkle overhead, John and Lily made a silent promise to each other. They would face whatever challenges lay ahead, stronger together and with a renewed sense of trust in themselves and in their family. This vacation marked a new chapter in their lives, a chapter of healing, joy, and endless possibilities. A year had passed since the dramatic events that had forever altered the course of their lives. John and Lily had returned to a semblance of normalcy, cherishing every moment together. They had worked hard to heal from the trauma of Grace's betrayal, and each day brought new opportunities for growth and happiness. Lily had blossomed into a confident young girl, her laughter once again ringing through their home. She had taken up painting and often spent her afternoons creating vibrant landscapes, inspired by their trips to the beach. The once quiet and anxious child was now filled with curiosity and creativity, her spirit reflecting the resilience she had developed over the past year. One sunny afternoon, as John was fixing lunch, he overheard Lily chatting excitedly with her friend Ellie in the living room. "And then we built the biggest sandcastle ever. It was like a palace," Lily exclaimed, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. John smiled to himself, grateful for the way their shared experiences had enriched Lily's life. Later that day, as they sat down for dinner, John decided it was the perfect time to have a heart-to-heart conversation with Lily. "You know, sweetie, I've been thinking about how far we've come. I'm so proud of you," he said, looking deeply into her eyes. "Thanks, Dad." "I'm proud of us too," Lily replied, a wide grin spreading across her face. "I feel like I can do anything now." "You can, Lily. You've shown so much bravery and strength. Remember what we learned in therapy about facing fears?" John prompted, wanting to reinforce the valuable lessons they had both learned. "Yeah, that it's okay to be scared, but we have to keep going anyway," Lily replied thoughtfully. "And that family is always there for each other." "Exactly," John said, feeling a warmth in his heart. "And I want to always be there for you, just like you're always there for me." After dinner, as they cleaned up together, John felt a surge of gratitude. Their bond had grown stronger through their trials, and he had learned to appreciate the little things, a shared laugh, a casual walk, the warmth of a hug. He was determined to create a loving environment where Lily could thrive. As summer approached, John decided it was time for them to start a new family tradition. "How about we do something special this year, just the two of us," he suggested one evening. "A weekend getaway to somewhere we've never been before." Lily's eyes sparkled with excitement. "That sounds awesome. Where should we go?" John smiled, thinking about their options. "What do you think about going to the mountains? We could hike, have a picnic, and explore nature." "Yes, I love the mountains," Lily shouted, bouncing on her toes. "Can we make s'mores?" "Absolutely. S'mores are a must," John laughed, happy to see Lily so excited. They spent the next few weeks planning their mountain trip, researching trails, packing gear, and even trying out new recipes for their outdoor meals. With each passing day, their anticipation grew, and the trip became a symbol of their new beginnings. When the weekend finally arrived, they packed the car with camping gear and set off for the mountains. As they drove through winding roads surrounded by towering trees, Lily gazed out the window, her heart racing with joy. She felt a sense of freedom and adventure, excited to create new memories. Upon arriving at the campsite, they quickly set up their tent and unloaded their gear. The crisp mountain air invigorated them as they explored the area, taking in the breathtaking views. They hiked through lush trails, spotting wildlife and collecting colorful leaves and rocks. With each step, they embraced the beauty of nature, leaving behind the worries of their past. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, they gathered around the campfire. The crackling flames illuminated their faces as they toasted marshmallows and shared stories. John looked at Lily, who was beaming with happiness, and felt a wave of contentment wash over him. "Dad, this is the best day ever," Lily declared, stuffing a gooey s'more into her mouth. "I love being here with you." "I love being here with you too, Lily," John said, his heart full. These moments are what life is all about. After finishing their s'mores, they lay back on a blanket, gazing up at the stars twinkling above. The night sky was vast and magnificent, a reminder of the limitless possibilities ahead of them. "Dad," Lily said softly, "do you think Grace is still out there?" John took a deep breath, remembering the fear and uncertainty they had faced. "I don't know, sweetheart, but what I do know is that we are safe now. We have each other, and that's what matters." Lily nodded, feeling reassured by her father's words. "Yeah, we can face anything together." As they both drifted off to sleep under the stars, John felt a sense of peace envelop them. They had weathered the storm and emerged stronger, their bond unbreakable. The following weeks turned into months, filled with laughter, adventures, and an unwavering commitment to one another. They became each other's greatest supporters, navigating life's challenges with resilience and love. On the one-year anniversary of Grace's arrest, they decided to celebrate their journey together. They returned to the beach where they had once found solace, marking the occasion with a picnic and a heartfelt reflection on how far they had come. Sitting on the same shore where they had built sandcastles and splashed in the waves, Lily pulled out her notebook. "I want to write a new story," she said, her eyes bright with inspiration. "What kind of story?" John asked, intrigued. "A story about our adventures, about how we faced our fears and found our happiness again," Lily explained. John smiled, proud of her spirit. "That sounds like a wonderful idea. I can't wait to read it." As Lily began to write, she poured her heart onto the pages, documenting their journey, the lessons learned, and the love they shared. It was a story of resilience, hope, and the unbreakable bond between a father and daughter, a testament to their strength in the face of adversity. In that moment, under the warm sun and surrounded by the sounds of the ocean, they knew they had created a new chapter in their lives, one filled with love, trust, and endless possibilities. The shadows of the past faded away, replaced by the brightness of their future together. This story concludes here. Please feel free to share your thoughts in the comments section below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss out on the heartfelt stories I'm dedicated to bringing to you. Your support is a precious motivation for me to continue this journey, and I am truly grateful to have you as part of it.